Just okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
I'd like to amend the agenda to remove closed session.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the agenda, strike the closed session. Any discussion? All those in favor? Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Approve. All those in favor? Right. Okay, now we need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Discussion. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda? And say aye. First thing on the agenda is public comments. Any public comments? Anybody signed up? Nobody? Close public comments. First up, mayor's report, which I'll report that, but Linda's out. The only thing that I have to report is I have a first draft of a sidewalk ordinance, changes to how we fund and handle sidewalk requirements. So I'd like to sit down with you and Eric maybe and discuss that and then bring it to the board in a future meeting. So put that on your radar. I'll send it out to you soon. That's all I have. We'll do commissioner report.
We have nothing today.
I got it.
I just wanted to mention the passing of a couple people. This past week, we lost Lambert Wilson. He was a staunch educator, chairman of Swain County Schools for a number of years, and also a benefactor for the Fine Art Museum. So we really mourn that loss. And also Jen Gordon, a grad student with Western Carolina University, had a little gallery shop on Mill Street, the Hive. Very active in the community and working towards her degree at Western. So we mourn that loss as well.
Good morning. First wish Dave Russell a happy birthday.
Very much.
I had a citizen reach out to me about letting the commissioners and everyone know that there is a food truck boot camp on Wednesday, November 9th from 3 to 4:30 p.m. It's at the EBCI Commerce large conference room at the Gingerland Welch Complex on Aquani Road at 810 Aquani Road in Cherokee. If you register, you do get a free food truck meal ticket, but they will be going over food trucks and local government and how-tos and the impacts in Western North Carolina. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's all I have to do.
Okay, next up, manager's report.
Good morning. I just got a few things. Treat Street is Monday from 5 to 7. Western's Homecoming Parade, remember, it begins now at 6 to make the most of daylight. That's November the 4th. We have the Pottery Festival, November the 5th from 10 until 4 at Bridge Park. So this will be a very busy weekend for our merchants with the Pottery Festival and Western Homecoming falling on the same day. And the depot as far as the downtown restroom, the depot survey is complete. Odell has contracted engineers for the public restroom. So looking at the timeline of their projects, designs and the bid process, Odell anticipates having documents ready in February to send to the railroad. With the Bridge Park Stormwater Project, we will execute the contract with Equinox for project management and oversight of the project. And Jake and I have been working to submit the information to the Southwestern Commission for their rural transformation grant, which is due on Monday. And that's all that I have, unless you all have questions.
Stage, Public Works.
Morning, everybody. We started leaf collection. I'm sure y'all have seen the guys out picking up leaves. We're doing deliveries to the community garden. And if you know anybody in town that needs leaves for the compost heaps, provided we can get the machine in there, we'd be happy to load some leaves wherever we can. We are, like Craig said, Public Works is preparing for the upcoming events, Treat Street, Homecoming, Western WNC Pottery Festival, and the Veterans Day Parade. So we got a lot coming up here in the next few weeks. We've got our power drop installed at the skate park, and wow, we have a panel, Greg. So I'm hoping that we get surveillance cameras installed next week, and once we get all that up and running, we can start construction on the skate ramps. We're in the short rows on that project right now.
Do you want me to get the skaters to go out there and dig some dirt out?
Let me let you know.
Okay.
Paige mentioned the rural transformation grant deadline is November 1st. I'd like to thank Ann Wade and Becca Scott for helping us out with that. That's going to be a pretty competitive grant, but we've got a really solid application that I'm excited about. So we've started with coordinating overhead utility relocations on Allen Street. That's kind of a tangible first step to actually starting that project. There's a lot going into that, but Duke and Frontier have been helpful so far. So that process is going. I'm coordinating with Dennis Desmond from Temple Park Foundation on some trail counters and parking counters. He's hoping to get those installed next week. That'll be good data to have, see how many people are on those trails and how many people are in the parking lot. We've noticed a huge increase in usage up there since the beginning of the pandemic, but we don't have any data. It's all pretty anecdotal. So I'm anxious to see how many people are actually using that up there. I think it's a lot. Last Thursday, I was invited to be part of a presentation that Daniel Mannering did with Flosida, a group of 7th grade students. They toured his water and sewer facilities, and then they came to Bridge Park for a tour of our stormwater system. We talked about some of the upgrades that are going to happen at Bridge Park. I said Bryson earlier, excuse me, at Bridge Park. We'll put some non-toxic dye down a storm drain and let them see that flows into the creek. And they were super engaged, and we seemed to learn a lot. So I'd like to thank Daniel for including me in that. Holiday decorations are going to be going up here next month, and the Christmas tree will be going in the fountain on December 1st. Y'all don't have any questions?
Morning, right? So, here in just a very few days, I think, November 3rd, we'll be staffed again. Sorry, better schedule, and we hired Brian Griffith, coming to us from Waynesville Police Department, but he lives here in Sylva, and he was here in Sylva before he went to Waynesville, so he's just coming home. A good thing. Lots of positive comments from the community about Brian coming back. So I didn't work with Brian before, but excited to hear about it. We have so we're fully staffed, but we also have, and I'm going to introduce somebody to you real quick. Alvin Goshik, he's Alvin's coming to us from Wendell PD, and he's made a decision he wants to work here at Sylva PD, and he's even willing to wait for a spot to open up to do that. So he's been going through the training process with us, and he'll be filling shifts for vacations, training classes, those kinds of things. He'll be able to fill in those spots instead of us having to pay somebody overtime to fill that spot and work on the day off. So thanks, Alan, for that. He's doing great. So we had the Walk for Hope, which was very successful. I think the best estimate we have is probably up to 100 people came to that. And so the best guess we got some photos from, it's kind of hard to count all the people, but probably around about 100. So I don't know if that's the biggest one ever or not, but it's definitely a big step up from the last 2 years where we weren't able to have the walk. So that's a good thing. That's definitely one of my very favorite events. So it was good. And we're in event season, of course, as you know, lots of plans going on, getting ready to hold these events and keep people safe. And one of the things we're working on now is some solutions. As you know, security in the world has changed, especially when it comes to events with people walking, especially in one group. And so it's not in traditional law enforcement, we were more worried about people being threats to crowds, one individual or two individuals. Now it's more vehicles and more people. And so having to block roads, keep vehicles from driving into our crowds and that kind of thing is it's a bit of a challenge for us. So we're working on some ways to be more efficient and be able to make sure that everybody that's here and can enjoy their time and not have to worry about something like that. So we had a meeting in the last month with the North Carolina School Government, their criminal justice innovation lab, with Western folks, so you'll hear from just a little bit. Some exciting things are happening there. Potentially, they'll be doing a study on our community care program and getting the addiction right as a model for the entire state from their office. So it's pretty exciting. This has been a month of teamwork for us. We've had a lot of things happen where we've needed other people to get it done. And so I'm trying to do a good job of telling everybody thank you. But we have the Sally accident, as we all know about, their cookout. The Highway Patrol was very, very helpful with that. And then we've also had a big truck wreck just the other day that pushed westbound 74 traffic down Mill Street. So that was definitely a time when we needed a lot of help. Seems like a lot of things we've done here lately. We needed a good teamwork with everybody around us, and we've definitely got that, so it's good. Just touch on a couple training things. Assistant Chief John Thomas and I just finished the Jackson County Citizens Academy, which if you haven't been to that, you need to go to it. They'll have it again next year. Just there's so many things I didn't know that are going on all around me. So that was definitely a plus for me to go to it. And I think John would say the same thing. We learned a lot about just what's happening right here all around us that we didn't know. So I would recommend that program to anybody. We had some different supervisors went to a leadership webinar. We had a web-based training for cops in crisis. And if you folks don't know, that's a big deal for law enforcement right now, is their mental status and their mental well-being of officers. There's a new statistic of officers are actually harming themselves with their own guns more than people are harming the officers with their own guns. So bad statistic. And so we did a little training on that. We also had some training on some human trafficking, and then did a lot of the maintenance, job related skills like radar and toximeter, all those things that we have to do. We have to keep that training up. Just real fast, during the last 30 days since we had our last report last week, we've had about 1,200 police actions logged. That's proactive and reactive. And we had about 42 arrests, 20 felony, 22 misdemeanor. Those are for assaults, B&E, weapon, drug-related charges, disorderly conduct, trespassing, and then 3 court processes. So that was just an overview of what we've been doing for the last month. Any questions? Fire department report.
We'll start off with telling you we've run 977 calls this year, which is a lot. That's about 200 more than we run all of last year. So we're way ahead on that. I was going to tell you that the paid guys are working out real well. We're actually all quicker and getting on scene quicker. And we have some that's in training right now. We're having an EMR class, it's emergency medical responder class out at the station. We have 4 of our paid guys in it, and 7 of our volunteers are in taking that. That ends in December. We'll have some more people certified there. Then we're going to send some people to the Fire Academy in Haywood after the first of the year for our paid guys. We've got one right now about to finish up at the Fire Academy in Haywood, Kevin. He'll be done in December. And then Travis, our other captain, is finishing his EMT in November. So we're gaining a lot. Like I say, we appreciate the opportunity to come and pay department and see how it works out, and it's working out well right now.
With the calls being up, do you break those calls down? I mean, like, are there more fires, or is it more Narcan runs, or,
There's a lot of Narcan.
Yeah, but I mean, that increase, have you broken it down? Do you see?
We do, but I can't see up.
Okay.
Yes, they have been a lot of overdose this year, especially.
Yeah.
That's up, I know, just off the top of my head, quite a bit.
But as far as kind of traditional, like, fire, is that fires about the same, would you say?
Oh, that's-
Yeah,
I'd say.
thanks.
Thank you.
Main Street portion.
Good morning. So I attended the State Workforce Conference in Greensboro. Southwestern Commission sponsored me to go to that, which was great because that's been a lot of the economic development activity that we've been doing. I attended all the apprentice tracks, which has been a huge part of what we've been using to not only bring talent into some of our merchants, but also to retain them over time and grow that local workforce. So many of our local partners attended too, NC Works, Heights, My Future NC, and all the counterparts in our region. So it was great to get to know everybody all in one place for networking and ideas and that sort of thing. So the information I learned gave me some more structure for the downtown culinary program that we launched, since we're the first state to lead that program. So there was a lot of unknowns. Paige mentioned a lot of the activities that we have ongoing through the next several weeks. I gave you guys all a list of what goes on through the end of the year. Sylva PD has been great about creating a plan for each of those where the streets are closed. So that's perfect. And then also we're launching a winter bingo program, our promotions committee, so that folks can, be incentivized to visit all of the merchants throughout the winter, and they'll get a prize if they fill out the whole card. The food truck program that Natalie mentioned is a multi-day program. So I'm on 2 of the panels and just kind of disseminating information that was already created here by all of you and Paige with the ordinance. And it'll be interesting to get some of the ideas from other folks in the area that are going to be on those panels. And then wanted to talk with you a little bit about the Christmas parade. Sounds crazy, but it's right around the corner. So I had an idea for board participation and wanted to see what you guys thought. So since the float materials that we've used in the past have degraded quite a bit, we thought it would be a good idea for the board, the staff, and families to walk in the parade this year and decorate wagons that they'll pull with extra candy. You guys can pull with extra candy for your small kids, that sort of thing. And we were thinking that we could put you kind of more at the front of the parade, behind the chancellor and SEC president and the mayor, so that you would have the opportunity to stop at the fountain at the end and watch the rest of the parade. It would allow you to be more visible to the community. Just wanted to know what you guys thought of that, and if you think that's a good idea.
A great idea.
Do we need to do anything with that or just get the nods? And
We have this as an agenda item for discussion at the end.
okay,
But if you don't feel like it needs more discussion,
That's up to you all.
actually, anything else you want to discuss about that at the end, or you just want our okay?
Yeah.
To do that way, yeah, we'll just do it that way.
I can coordinate with you guys and see who has wagons. We've already got 4 that we know of, and maybe schedule a time where we could just get together and decorate them, before the parade. So,
No horses, we can't ride horses.
yeah, if you really wanted to.
It's a whole separate issue.
Yeah, loud sound.
We are trying for.
You guys have any other questions?
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the Twassa board report, and we have our director here, Daniel Mannering, for those on the board who haven't met Daniel yet, although I imagine everybody has. The only thing I can think of to report is the finding of the leak, challenging leak that you all discovered last week, and had the help of town staff, the fire department, cleaning up after that. So we appreciate that. Anything you can think of?
I'll add, I just came to watch this meeting, but I'll add, thanks to the town also for that field trip Jake was talking about. A big initiative of mine is community outreach, and I don't think you can touch a better crowd than 7th graders. They were super engaged, and they wanted to learn all things water that day. And so the town hosted with providing them a place to eat lunch, and then Jake gave the tour on stormwater, and it was phenomenal. It was a fantastic day. One other thing, since I'm in the town of Sylva now, the Jackson paper project that we're doing, you guys have seen construction kind of behind Speedy's and across from the plant. We just did another pump startup on that yesterday. And so you'll see that one start to get cleaned up and there won't be any more activity hopefully soon there. So that project's gone really well. On time because we moved the deadline, but still under budget. So, yeah, so that's all I have.
And I just want to say thanks for your guys getting out there and taking care of the main on Ridgeway. I know there's other folks here. Also.
So that was the second leak. We've had two pretty major leaks this week, but the one from an operational standpoint that was terrible was on Savannah, right at the top of Yellowbird. And that was on Saturday. And with a limited crew, we were able to get that fixed in just a couple hours. And then the fire department came out and helped us clean up. So that's what we do. You often don't see us, but generally if there's a leak, it's at night or on a weekend or on a holiday. And so we try to get on that stuff quick. But if from a community standpoint, if anyone notices something like more water in an area where they're not used to seeing more water, there's a chance that we're out there looking for it. So don't be hesitant at all to give us a shout or me directly a shout and we'll investigate it. So that's all.
Pinnacle Park report. The only thing I have there is there is a work day planned for this weekend up there on Saturday. I think we're rehabbing a spring. If anyone wants to join. And we're still I think our RFQ is out for master plans.
David, did y'all ever get results from the Equinox bioinventory study that they did?
We have not yet.
Is it done?
No, I think the completion date on the contract is December.
Okay.
So I doubt they're done ahead of schedule.
Right. So,
Jay might have received an update since our last meeting, but not that.
and just a reminder, had they gone over the top as well? Had they done the Black Rock section as well, or was it just Pinnacle? For the,
It included the 400 acres.
We took them into Black Rock.
that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what, just trying to make sure. Okay. And then any updates on the community polling, if you will, or outreach that you had Chris Cooper?
No significant updates. Chris is working with one of the people in the Pinnacle Park board to find.
Okay, so it hasn't gone out or anything yet.
No. No, that's done.
And I wanted to mention that the trail counters were a grant from the TVA, so thanks to them for assisting Pinnacle Park Foundation with those.
Yeah, that'll be very helpful towards getting more grants for trail maintenance and things like that. So that was a huge help. And they've done those for Hampton Town as well. Okay, that finishes our reports. Unless there's any more questions or anything, we'll go to new business. First thing is we have police department special recognition.
So you guys remember about a year and 3 months ago, we added John Thomas to our department. He's our assistant chief of police for Crossing retiring. And he's been busy. He's been doing a lot of things. He's definitely made us much stronger. John, you go ahead and come on up here. You can be embarrassed while I say all this. He has been very busy and he has made a heck of an asset for us and definitely a good partner for me. And one of the things he's been busy doing is going through some leadership training. And I don't mean any old leadership training. I mean the best leadership training. And so he has earned one of these quite a little while back, and then one's new. We just wanted to sort of combine it and do the recognition all at once. But the first one that we'll talk about is this is through North Carolina State University. The Administrative Officers Management Program this is the 93rd one. That's the 2022 summer semester. This is for North Carolina, the premier law enforcement training course that you can go to. AOMP is kind of what it gets called. When you start looking for law enforcement leaders, you start hearing things like the FBI Academy, there's Southern Law Police Institute, things like that. This is right up there along with that. It's not easy. It's not something that you just go to some class for 40 hours. You sit there all day and you get you get this. That's how it's, there's a lot of work, and a lot of papers, stuff to write, a lot of in-depth things. College credit, which John has a master's degree, but nonetheless, he got a little more credit for that kind of thing. So not easy at all. So that's that one. And then yeah, we have the North Carolina Justice Academy here, and they really the primary training outlet that we have. Usually what the programs that they have, we're able to send officers to there's 2 campuses, and we're able to send our officers there. They get free lodging, and the training is free usually too. So that cuts the training costs down considerably for us. They went on to pay their salary and gas, and their fuel, that kind of thing. So we do send a lot of people to that kind of training, but they have certificate programs for different specialties. And this one in particular, John has just completed, is the leadership certificate program. And I don't remember the hours. You don't know. 400 hours of training. So a lot of this stuff we've been able to do on Zoom online, which has been really helpful for us, because obviously for somebody to leave the department for 400 hours would be devastating for us. But John has been instrumental in seeking out this training. And as a matter of fact, this one is pretty expensive to go through. And John was able to find a grant through the credit union to help pay for that, because honestly, our budget probably wouldn't have been able to afford it without that. So yeah, so this one, you guys could see that. This one right here is just for the leadership certificate program. And both of these are a heck of an accomplishment. And I don't want to cheapen it by doing both of these at one time. We just want to be efficient. We knew this one was coming right on the tail. So we just said, we'll just do it all at one time. So either way, publicly, thank you to John for his commitment to us. He's the reason why these guys are all here. They wanted to show support for him today, and we're proud to have him. He's doing a heck of a job. So we'll take a classic photo and you guys will be on the photo.
I'm already done some stories.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do
Good.
Okay, next item, Police Department Community Care Program presentation. Please, Carabellis.
I thought they came to hear us present. I was really excited. Do we have a clicker for the PowerPoint for us?
I feel like I should introduce anybody, but I think everybody knows.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself.
Okay, sounds good.
The others.
Let it pop up there, maybe. We're just building up anticipation of this presentation.
You want to see here or just open the window?
Okay. The way you're handling the fly. Everybody, I'm Carabellis. I'm a professor with the Criminology and Criminal Justice Department at Western Carolina University. And I am here with Galadriel, who is our current social work intern. So if you want to introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background before we get started, that'd be wonderful.
Oh.
Sorry, here you go.
Okay, I'm Galadriel Levier. I'm a master's social work student at Western. I'm the current intern at the Sylva Police Department. I'm a non-traditional student, as you can maybe tell from the gray hair. I have a background. My undergrad was in English with a professional writing degree. I have a master's in teaching English to speakers of other languages. I've worked at SCC as an ESL and citizenship teacher for 7 to 10 years. I don't know, I've lost track of that, and dabbled with the high school equivalency classes, help them out when they need that. I've lived in Jackson County since I was 20 and came here for college. And then just in the last 2 years, we've bought a house just barely into Macon County, but we're kind of in the middle. So I'm still, when I think of community, I mean, this is where I've been the last 25 years. Did ministry in Jackson County with Lifeway Community Church for about 17 years with my husband Joshua. Did a lot of international work then. We spent 3 months working with refugees in Greece. Definitely a background of community work is what I've decided ultimately that's what I want to do. So this has been really great for me to be in this position and be kind of a community advocate for all the different organizations and connecting pieces. So I've really enjoyed it.
And we'll hear more from Galadriel. She's got some numbers for you all about the activities that we've been doing the last year. I just wanted to get started with the history of how this program came to be, just a really brief overview. The summer of 2020, we had a lot of national attention around negative police interaction with citizens. There was a call in the community for non-sworn personnel to respond to calls and to shift away from a more, what's what I'm looking for, a more punitive response to a lot of calls that weren't necessarily punitive in nature. My social work counterpart, Katie Allen, isn't here with us today, but she sent me a message on Facebook and she said, hey, so I have been hearing a lot on the news about how social workers should be responding to these calls instead of law enforcement officers. And she said, the problem with that is, she said, number one, I'm not remotely trained to be a first responder. And number two is I don't know anything about police work. She's like, I don't understand the structure. I don't understand the system. Do you think that we could start a conversation with the two of us to kind of explore what the future for our students would look like if we were going to have more social workers operating in a criminal justice sense? So we spent the next year doing research. What does this look like to have non-emergency response with social workers in a police setting? What we found was that there were lots of programs in urban areas where they have the capacity and the budgets to have crisis response intervention teams that can be deployed. But what we know about policing is the vast majority of police departments look like this. 90% of law enforcement agencies have 15 or fewer officers, period, 90%. So this is policing in the United States. And there was no model for what non-sworn response looks like in rural areas. So we approached Chief Hatton. I want to thank him for his trust because this was a pilot program. This was, hey, can we try this? It's not going to cost you anything. We would like to train up some interns. And initially, when we had this program, his first response, and I wish I had this on tape because I love that he changed his mind. He said, absolutely not. I will not have, we can have them here for follow-up. They will not be responding. We are not doing crisis response. It's not happening. Of course, no, we are, which you'll hear about in a second. But because we knew that the vast majority of calls that we get from a law enforcement point of view are typically non-criminal. We have a lot of mental health issues. We have a lot of people who are unhoused. We have a lot of, all of the ramifications around drug use and what that kind of leads to. But people, the only number they know is to call law enforcement, right? That's who they call for all of these things. And the problem is the only tool that law enforcement has is intervention in the form of arrest, citation, or warning. And that's it. They don't have a lot of tools to respond. So when we talk about why Sylva, why was Sylva a good fit for this pilot program? It is small enough to test something to where we could do it right. It was really, really important to us that the students that we had placed in these internship programs were directly trained from both a criminal justice professor and a social work professor. We wanted them to be social work students who got a really quick precursor on what the criminal justice system looks like, right? What are you going to see? How do we process these cases? But it was also big enough that we could know very quickly whether we were making an impact, right? We had enough cases and enough calls that we could see movement. And the other thing was the culture of Sylva PD is so unique in the town of Jackson County in that Chief Hatton was open and willing to try new things. And our early conversations was, let's just give this a go. If it's not working, we'll pivot. We'll we had no expectations of how effective this would be. We just knew we wanted to try. We knew that the citizens of Sylva wanted us to try, right? They wanted to see something that wasn't just a straight law enforcement response. And so the culture was such that the officers, we knew we could talk to them directly and get buy-in of why this was important and how this could be effective. And so our mission statement for the community care program is to support the Sylva community by offering voluntary social work services in partnership with law enforcement. When our social work interns come to the department, they are not trying to replace sworn officers. They're trying to work in partnership with us so that we can effectively find out exactly what's going on. And what we say is that we are trying to do pre-crisis intervention, right? If we see someone who's struggling before someone calls law enforcement, let's get someone out there to sit with them and find out what is going on. How can we maybe help shift things before it becomes something that does require a sworn response? So our objectives for this program, number one, as I mentioned, the law enforcement toolbox is limited, right? You have arrests, you have citations, you have warnings. I mean, what we knew in speaking with our law enforcement officers is that we have what are called frequent flyers, right? There are people that law enforcement officers interact with on a literal daily basis. And so when we were talking to the chief about this, we said, what if we could get someone in there to help fix what's going on or to help get more options so that we aren't just having people call in every day, hey, there's someone at this intersection again, or hey, there's someone sleeping behind the Pizza Hut. Let's figure this out. Let's go and help so that we aren't just using police resources repeatedly for calls that we know we can do better to fix. Solutions. This is really important to us that a lot of times officers, they are on one call until they get a call for the next call. They don't have the time, especially when we only have 2 or 3 officers per shift. They don't have the time to sit down with someone for an hour and to figure out, have you reached, are you in contact with here? Have you reached out to some other resources in this community that we can kind of connect with. So we needed the officers, if they knew this was something that could use our social worker, they could make a referral and then our social worker could take the time to sit down and really explore some long-term solutions. In this field, when you talk about police calls, sometimes you're talking about quick fixes, right? You're like, okay, people are stressed out that someone's publicly sitting behind this intersection. Let's get you somewhere that's less public, right? That's not fixing the problem long-term. That's responding to the citizen response of, we don't know what's going on here, but we want to bring it to your attention. So the second primary goal for us is to figure this out, to help as much as we can. Number 3, to promote safety of officers and community members through increased opportunities for de-escalation and proactive pre-crisis intervention. Oftentimes, if someone is having a mental health crisis, these situations have a tendency to, as soon as law enforcement shows up, they start to get nervous, they start to get panicked. The likelihood that this is going to end up in an unsafe situation for either the officer or the citizen increases. So the ability to have a social worker who's not sworn, not in uniform, introduces himself as a social worker, immediately, as Galadriel will share, changes the tenor of the conversation. It just changes it. And so officer safety was one of the things that we felt really strongly about, is let's not put them in situations that they're not equipped to handle, especially if there's something, again, like a mental health crisis that's happening that could escalate quickly. Harm reduction, from the citizen point of view, if you think about, individuals that we work with the community care program, they are out of options. They don't know what else to do, right? I mean, a lot of times this is why they're in this situation. And so if they are just existing in a public space that is making people uncomfortable and someone calls law enforcement about it, every time law enforcement shows up, they feel like they're doing something wrong. And so to reduce the trauma of these negative, these constant interactions, and officers are just doing their job in that when someone places a call, you go out, that's your job. You respond to the call. So from a citizen perspective, to perhaps if we have a way to stop that frequent law enforcement contact for them if they're not doing something criminal, I think that is in the best interest of improving their life as well. And then efficiency. Again, the number of times that officers respond to the same calls over and over again, it's not a criminal call. We're still using resources. We're still using their time. Let's make this workflow easier for them. So our social work intern can do lots of different processes. If we have to involve if we have to involve a WAKE or Center for Domestic Peace or some other agencies that can take over kind of the helping people through the process, then we have reduced the time it takes for officers to try to make those connections with nonprofits to get people kind of out of the system. All right, so I'm going to bring Ladriel up here for just a second so that she can talk you through some of these reports. So come on up.
Can I just real quick,
Yeah.
not to interrupt, but
Yeah.
if y'all can comment, kind of, I didn't see it up there. But the ability for the officers to learn as well, how to approach some of these situations too from social work. Because they're not trained in social work and they're
Right.
trained in, you know, I think because I know we share some of the same regulars, and folks can be pretty scary, and it's, you know, it's a nice thing to have the tools to actually kind of de-escalate to from a completely different standpoint. So I just wanted to find out, like, have you, and from the officers as well, have you, do you feel like they're learning from work as well?
Yeah, I'll touch on that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Archie.
Okay, so first some of the data and then I'll give more information fleshed out. So these are the primary issues that we've tracked that we're seeing. And if you can see, obviously, the substance use, mental health, unhoused individuals and poverty, those kind of, they always go hand in hand. I mean, obviously, if you're having substance use issues, that's going to relate to poverty and can lead to being unhoused. If you have mental health issues that are not being treated, or you don't know what to do, that can also lead to poverty, can lead to unhoused. They're all interrelated. And what we're finding is some things are going to be a quick fix. Some things are not with this program. Two individuals, just to contrast two cases, you know, one individual that had a substance use background, I was able to connect with a peer counselor, a peer support specialist. They realized, oh, I could get a job in Highlands or Cashiers that has housing attached to it. She went that route. She has support from peer support. She's doing great. Another individual, you know, with mental health issues, unhoused, it's a longer process. You know, I made a referral to Meridian. They were able to get an evaluation. They're attending classes there. You know, being unhoused has other issues with getting places, making things happen. So I was able to help complete an emergency housing application with here, but it's still taking time. There's still, it's a longer process. Some people are going to be more motivated than others, but that is kind of the area that I'm finding I'm working the most in is right there. Doesn't mean there's not other things we can't do, but that's definitely some of the issues going on here. So our response, the ultimate goal is to get people where they need to be or connected to resources that actually make a difference long-term. So you can see 36% we were able to offer or provide the services ourselves. The 28% are referred out to services in the community. So I spent a lot of time networking, getting connected with all the services in the community. I'm still learning, still finding new sources and new people that are like, oh, I can do that. I could help serve that need. So it's really a community effort here to get people on the track to healing. And then the other numbers of having to assist people with accessing services, that's something else I can do. Sometimes people they need somebody to drive paperwork around for them. They just don't have the resources. And then a small percentage not eligible for services or that we were just unable to contact. So the outcomes, we have 49%, a large percentage have voluntarily received services. They are happy to get the help. And they're grateful to have somebody brainstorming and working with them to get to the next step in their life. We do have the 26% unable to contact, and very small percentages of those that did not follow through, couldn't find a service or have declined. So I feel like those are very positive numbers. It's the people that we've reached out to are generally very grateful for this.
Okay, so a snapshot. We have seen a large increase in referrals. I think the first semester, the student had 8 referrals. The next semester, there were 9 referrals. In my semester that's not even done, I've had 22 referrals. The community in reaching out, I've met a few business owners and kind of tried to put myself out there visibly to say, you know, if you see somebody that needs assistance, I'm here. I can come sit down, I can talk with them, I can try to help figure this out. And the business owners have voiced great support. They're just happy that somebody is there to just check on people and see how do we get you out of this situation or one step further down this path. The main people I'm reaching out to and partnering with Jackson County DSS, Meridian here, the Center for Domestic Peace, Jackson Neighbors in Need, and I've just started an application with somebody for Rolling Start to get some assistance with their car. And we're finding, like Cindy touched on, just the value of having somebody that can go out there and sit beside somebody and just talk to them for 30 minutes and figure out, how did you come to this place? You know, if you could have one thing, what would be the most important to you? What do you see your next step as? What can I help you with? You know, these kind of questions that maybe nobody has asked. And we're finding, you know, as a community whole person response, you know, there are times where we're interacting with Mary to say, you know, such and such has this issue and this is where we are. And maybe Mary knows something or knows somebody to touch base with to say, oh, maybe I can work this angle or work this angle to try and get them where they need to be. Because obviously, usually substance use unhoused, nobody ends up there because they want. So just meeting these people, seeing how they came to be here. And it's a big variety. Some are local, some have finished substance use programs. And because of the state of their life now, they're on the streets. They're trying to improve, but they're stuck. So helping them get unstuck with a community whole person response is the goal.
All right, Chief, you're up.
So just a review real fast of how this process works is our officers go to calls, and I'll tell you more today than ever. Our guys are finding themselves with what we call stacked calls, which means there's more than one thing happening at one time. Now, there may be an hour and a half where nothing is happening, but then all of a sudden in 10 minutes time, we have 2 accidents and a fight and this and that going on, you know, all at one time. So what they were saying is correct. There's a lot of times where we don't have time to spend a whole lot of time with one individual. We do need to fix the problem and we do need to go to the next problem. So that's where this program really helps. But the way it works is when our folks find somebody that needs a little extra attention or a little extra love that we don't have the time to do, we can't fix this problem right now. And they do what's called referrals. So real quick little information sheet that goes to Galadriel. She takes it in. She'll get a copy of it. If there's an incident report or something, she'll read about it, find out, and then it's her job to sort of triage that and say, what do we think? What does this person need? What help fix this problem? They get contact information. They follow up. Galadriel follows up with them. Most of the times that's successful. Sometimes it's not. It's kind of the nature of the beast sort of thing. Sometimes they're hard to get a hold of again. But so that's how that works. And then another thing I want to talk about was officer acceptance. So we met with our officers on the front end of this, which is probably the smartest thing we've done so far, and trying to explain to them that nobody's trying to replace you. Nothing of that's happening. We're actually trying to give you a tool that can help you. And so the very first weekend we had 4 referrals over a 2-day weekend. So it caught on pretty quick. And so as Galadriel just said, it's growing fast as far as the referrals are, but so are some of our problems that we have. We're seeing a lot more homeless people than we had before. And so that's another reason. But so just real fast to kind of tell you where we've gotten to is when Galadriel first started, we had a situation and the officer said, social worker here, didn't know her name. There's a social worker here because I don't know what to do. It was a dementia patient situation. It was a tough one. And honestly, it wasn't something that the police could really handle, but nonetheless, it was for us to do. And so I said, absolutely. So I grabbed up the original, went out there and we ended up with a good solution for the problem. And Blake was a big part of that. And the officer that was there is Josh Geiger. And Josh said, I'm so glad she's here because it's just out of our, very light-handed situation with a dementia patient who's not happy. She didn't want us to be there at all, but her husband needed us to be there. And so Galadriel she gives a much softer interaction with her. I'm a social worker. They're not worried about losing their freedom or losing some, getting in trouble or something like that. So that went well. Fast forward a little bit. I go to another call. It's sort of a domestic kind of situation, and when I went in, the officer, so I think it's Sergeant Brandon Flesh said, I went in as backup to him on this call. And Galadriel and I had just been making some community contacts. So she was in the car out in the driveway. I went inside and Brandon said to me, is Galadriel with you? And I said, yeah. And he's like, we're going to. And I said, okay, great. She just happens to be right here. So we took care of business there in the driveway, and that one took a long time to handle, but we got it handled, and everybody was glad that she was there. Most recently, I'm gonna tell one on Ty here. We went to a call at a drugstore, and as I walked in again as backup for Ty, as I walked into the store from one end of Walgreens to the other, he says, "Is G with you?" Now it's G, right? I went from Later to G. "Is G with you?" And I said, "No, she's not." And he said, well, but I need her to be here. And I said, it's her day off. It's Friday. She's not here. And he's like, can we call her? I said, we can, but it's her day off. And so, and we actually did end up calling her. But so that's kind of a little bit of sort of how it's gone as far as the co-responder goes. I did say I didn't want co-responder, and I did not want co-responder. But what I have learned is that is where the magic is. That's really where it happened. And so what I didn't want was just some person riding around in our police car waiting on what I jokingly say something social worky to happen, and then be there. That doesn't seem efficient to me at all. And that's not the way we do it. Basically, when Galadriel's there and we have things that happen, then we bring her to the scene once everything's safe and everything's okay for her to do. So that is much more effective. And so that's definitely, as this thing moves and changes, that's definitely the direction that we're going. So less repeat calls is one of the things that we just heard about. That is a for sure thing. I can tell you many examples of, obviously for time I won't, but we have lots of folks. We had a new homeless guy we're working the homeless problem here different than anybody else I know. We're working it from the front end instead of the back end. So when I talk to other chiefs, I ask them, do you have more homeless people? Oh yeah. What are you doing with them? Or the calls, and just trying to handle it, moving them from one place to another. Not do anything proactive. What proactive could you do? Well, you could go meet them when they hit town and find out who they are and what do they need. And so a lot of those people, we get a lot of, we're trying to get to Asheville. I need to be in Franklin. I need to do this. And so we help them do that. That's what they need to do. So we had a new guy hit town probably maybe 2 weeks ago. And we got 3 calls on him the first day he was in town. And the reason why is because he was used to being homeless in big cities. And in big cities, you just sleep where you want. And so he was sleeping in front of business doors, in front of their main doors. And that's obviously not going to fly in Sylva. So people weren't happy about it. So they were calling. So we got 3 calls in one day on this guy who was not committing any criminal activity at all. So since then, I think we've got him situated. But so we're going meeting these people. As soon as we find out we've got somebody new in town that's having struggles, we tell our officers, do a referral. We're going to go try to find them. We're going to meet them and try to figure out what direction can we get you in to get you, one, so people aren't calling the police on you, and 2, what you really need in your life. So we've had, I'll tell one more story real quick with Lieutenant Moore here this is early on, and you may have heard this story already, but early on in the program, he got a call of a guy who was hanging around a dumpster at a business, and they just was kind of creeping people out, to be honest. And so they just called and thought he was suspicious. And so Bruce went to the call and finds the guy behind the dumpster, and he's a homeless fella. He's down and out. Like he has absolutely no options for this fella. And so Bruce starts talking to him and realizes there's no crime here. There's nothing, there's no police action to take. He's not committing any crimes, but this could be a community care kind of situation. So he says, as he's talking to him, he says, I'll tell you what. Have you eaten? No. Okay. We have food cards that one of those pictures was our officers giving a guy a food card that some local business donated to us, some local restaurants. So we found somebody needs to eat. A lot of officers buy a lot of meals. It happens a lot in hotel rooms. But because of these food cards, they don't have to spend the money on it. They've got the cards to give them. And so that's what that photo was. And that's what we did with him. I said, have you eaten? No. Okay. Let's get you something to eat. I'll take you to the police department. We've got a social worker there. You sit and talk with them. Yeah, who knows? Maybe we can come up with something. And as Bruce is, he's like, yeah, that sounds amazing. So as Bruce is trying to get him in the car, he literally stops and says, were you messing with me? Like, you're not messing with me. You really, yeah. And Bruce is telling him, I don't want to take you to jail. I have no reason to do that. And I'm trying to help you. And at one point in their interaction, he literally puts his hands together and says, I know how this goes. Just go ahead, just go ahead and take me to jail. Let's get over. And Bruce had to say, I don't want to take you to jail. I don't have any reason. So you haven't done anything wrong. But so he fast forward a little bit, we got into the police department and he said for Chris Martinez, our first community care liaison, and cries in the lobby for a half hour. We ended up working, he needed to ride somewhere. He needed to get, it was a place he needed to be. And so we made those arrangements with him and then it worked great. Another one that she mentioned, Rachel mentioned is we had a lady call and she said, did a referral, Arthur did a referral because she was sleeping in her car. And the lady says, I'm actually just having a hard time in life. I'm not. She didn't, I don't think she was necessarily really poor. She just was in her car at that moment. Having a bad go in life for sure. No addiction issues that I know of. You tell me if I'm telling you this wrong. No addiction issues with her. No, she just was having a hard time in life. So Galadriel was able to get her up with a peer counselor. And that's where the story came in of, well, we get you a job in Cashers, it comes with housing, which that housing was her only issue. And so I ended up with her skill set, she gets a job, she's not homeless anymore. So one more, we had a car at a Walmart, folks living in Walmart parking lot. And keep in mind, these are real people, this is real people, not just stories. A man, his wife, and his mother, who is wheelchair bound and a dementia patient, living with their 2 dogs and a cat in a Chevy Trailblazer. Heartbreaking. So we work with them. They had lots of issues. There's lots of reasons why this was happening. The car, we driven on the road. They had lots of issues. But as we fast forward a little bit now, not the housing program, Galadriel figured out a way with them with the money that they had to where they could have a place. And so they're housed now. And so they're housed, they've got a bathroom, a shower, all the things that we have in our house now, they have that. And so he's got a job. They've gotten their car situated. All of our officers helped them get their car legal so that they can drive around without worrying about getting more tickets or whatever. So just, I say all that to say this program is amazing. It's touching real people. It's not just, like I said, it's not just stories. And it's definitely helping the police department. We want to help people. That's why we're getting this business started with, but it's definitely helping the efficiency of the police department as well, not the business side of what we do too. And like I say, I honestly, I could just sit and tell story after story after story, but we don't have time. So, but we'll go back to Cindy now, and then we'll take questions.
And Ben, in answer to your question, officers take a lot of training on mental health first aid, a lot of training on de-escalation, on crisis intervention. Those are all things that they do. More importantly, much like I'm a doctor of a different kind than you, and if I don't want to go back to, I would have to go back to med school to be able to function in that regard. We don't want them to be therapists. What we want them to be able to do is recognize, okay, let me get this to a safe place and then let me make the referral. Because as I was speaking to the chief and some officers, the minute that you say we have a social worker, would you like to speak with them? It completely changes the tenor of the conversation. And so what they are getting as much training as they can get without becoming social workers themselves.
Yeah, right. And that's what I'm getting at, just to kind of recognizing those situations as what they are, rather than something else.
Oh, exactly. And I think it is culture shifting. I mean, I think once you get used to it and once you are familiar with this resource available to you, it really becomes something that they know to use first, right? I mean, the first year of the program, the first semester, it was an afterthought. It was like, oh, wait, no, I think we do have something that can help with this. But now, especially when officers are coming in and they're new, but she's been here, or this position has been here, it is part of their entry culture into the police department that this is how we do things here. It's just different. I will tell you that we have gotten so much attention, research attention, so much really just, hey, can you come help us do this too? Because what we're struggling with in Sylva is what most departments are struggling with, right? Responding to calls that are non-police calls, but it's still up to them to do it. We were just in Boone last week, 2 weeks ago. They got an intern before they knew what to do with them. So they said, hey, we got an intern from App State. Can you all come tell us what to do with this person? But we know with Professor Allen and I, because it's just the two of us, and this is not really part of our jobs, it's just something we feel really strongly about. We are only adding one department a semester because it really does require, we need to go there. We need to figure out, is your agency commissioner a good fit for this? Are your officers going to have buy-in for this? I mean, there are lots of things that can sink this. And so we're being very careful and selective on how we expand this because, as you all know, one bad scenario, one bad interaction can sink the entire ship. And so we are very intentional with this. So Boone is up and running. We have research protocols that we're like, hey, here's some pre-test, post-test that you can do with officers and how they feel about this. Let's look at your metrics, your data. So they're up and running with this. Western Carolina University is getting a community care liaison in the spring semester. They asked for one last year, but we actually did not have someone that we thought was a good enough fit. And we said, I'm sorry, we are not going to give you one until we have the right master's level student to put in this position so that, again, the integrity of the program is what's most important to us. This feels good. Black Mountain has called us. They're like, hey, we heard you're doing this in Boone. Can you come out? And we're like, so now we have truly a wait list of agencies that want this program. And, the importance about the community care program and the branding around it is anyone can get a social worker and give them a seat and say that they have paid lip service to community response. And that's not what this is. And so any programs that we're involved with, we want to actually be qualitatively different. And we want it to, again, if it's not making a difference, we're not getting paid for this. So it's a waste of our time. So, we're not in the business of PR. We're in the business of actually changing the quality of the interactions between our citizens and the officers. Another thing that we are spending a lot of time doing right now is looking for funding. I think sometimes we forget that Galadriel is a student who is trying to finish her education, because if she could be a full-time responder in the department, that would be ideal, but we're not there. We also know that the town's budget does not allow for the addition of this at this time, right? So we're working with lots of different North Carolina and national grant funding agencies to see if we can't get this to be a paid position, a paid grant funded position. And then we could assign whoever we hire to have their own intern to, again, be able to keep growing the program while also having someone who is a consistent face for the department so that they, because we change interns every year. And that, I think sometimes you've got that learning curve of building back up. So we would love to have the same person in that position so we could grow these relationships. Research. We are going up to, it's actually one of the second annual police social work conference. It's at Indianapolis next week, the university. We're not presenting, but the university feels strongly enough about this program that they are paying for me, Professor Alan Galadriel, and our other graduate research graduate assistant to head up there to network with other truly nationwide people coming together who are doing this to say what's working for you, what's not working, what are your funding sources. So we're really excited to get some face time with the other folks like us. Another thing I wanted to add, Western is just small enough that you really can change the trajectory of people. We have our first batch of master's level students that were CJ graduates. And so my students are now 80 students because they're like, wow, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. I want to be in a police department, but I don't want to be sworn. That is a huge percentage of my students who are like, I don't want to gun, I don't want to get a badge, but I want to be in it. And so we are truly creating the next generation of people who can work in policing, but with social work experience, which is what we need. We are working on our first 2 publications, and we're trying to beat the UNC Innovation Lab to the punch because they're going to do research on this summer. We would love to be able to do our own research before they, I don't want to say co-opt, but you know what I mean? Like before they give it their own spin and, it'll get national attention. So much like Galadriel with her classes, we are really busy in the doing, and now we need to be doing the writing up of it so that we can share our experiences. So if you all have any questions or feedback or suggestions, we would love to hear.
Yeah, oh, I was gonna say, so have you, because I know there's, when you get something like this starting to work and see great results, you want to expand it, but I completely hear you, like, you want to do it right. So, but what kind of interaction with Jackson County Sheriff's Department? Have they?
She's like, okay.
I'm here. Have they talked to the Sheriff's Department?
So I gave a presentation about something different on campus, and Gail Woody happened to be in the audience, and she was waiting for me when I was getting off stage. She's like, hey, we need to talk. Like, we need to talk about this. So I'll be honest with you, it is next on my list. I'm waiting till after the election so that we can find out, because as you know, when you have change in leadership, I could have spent the last year building a relationship with Sheriff Hall, but I knew he was leaving. And so at that point, you don't want to do all the investment on the front end and then have change in leadership, and then you have to start over and someone could scrap the program. And we don't want to do that to the student either, right? To put them in there and then have it. So that is November 9th. That is first on my list of things that I'm going to, because truly, and I was talking with Mary before, we did receive a lot of funds in Jackson County for opioid response. And those issues, mental health, substance use, individuals who are unhoused, those are Jackson County wide issues, and they're not just town of Sylva issues. So it would be the logical next step to have a partnership, especially if Western and Sylva PD has a community care liaison, to have one place in Jackson County, so that way we could really have this unit that can work together to triage problems and share resources and share stories. So that's the goal. And even with other departments, we are operating this as if it's going to be a consortium. So we already have, weekly, bi-weekly meetings with the community care intern in Boone. I mean, we talk all the time about what's working there, what's working here. So and I think that's the beauty of when you have the program first and then you seek funding, you aren't trying to keep the funding, right? I think sometimes you get a grant and you're scrambling to slap something down to spend the money. And this has been grown from the need up. And so I think because of that, we will get the grant funding, because once you have the data, you have the stories, you have the research, and it's showing that you have buy-in from the community, buy-in from law enforcement, then it's not that hard to get the funding on the back end. But yeah, no, Jackson County is my next step. Just been waiting.
So in large part, the success of this program depends on the level of services that you can connect people to. Do you find those services to be adequate to handle this?
I would say probably our biggest hangup right now is people who have substance use issues, and Meridian is our primary reach out, and they are incredibly understaffed right now and operating limited resources. So that is a big limitation from what we're seeing. Is we know the help they need, and we are having a hard time sometimes getting them with expediency, getting them back, getting them into treatment. G, if you want to house.
I will say also the lack of low income available housing or anywhere for unhoused individuals to go is just a big roadblock. I mean, the people that actually have a vehicle and can stay in that they're doing better, but in general, there's not a lot of options.
That seems to be the weak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good to use a lot of the data that you gather, not just for helping with the police departments, but also advising groups like the county to fund the sort of services to do a better job.
Yeah.
To give you something to,
Yeah.
to connect people.
We've read to solve a lot of sort of myths too. For example, in the HERE program, for whatever reason, a few years ago, they were well funded and they have the money to spend. That's not the case now. They don't have a lot of money to spend. And so they are really struggling to try to figure out how to do cold weather shelter this year. Much less anything extra above that. We're just talking about the days of freezing. Even they're having to get pretty creative just to plan our winter. And so, and I talked to Greta weekly, and whenever I talked to her probably a month or so ago, I think I said in a meeting, I talked to her, it was way before winter time, and she said, we're doing winter business now. And so she was concerned what winter was going to look like.
And we, if, we can share what the information that we gather is from these reports. Truly our goal is to have, so this is not, the reason that, we just gave these slides is most of our data is qualitative. It is based on the interviews that we have with individuals, like, okay, let's see all the different parts that are kind of going on here. So we will have a really rich data set, with the individuals that we see regularly, just on the basis of that. And I'll say one of the other issues that we are bumping up against is, when you lack resources, people start to lose faith in even reaching out, right? So if they have tried before to get help and there was no availability for help, then we can make the referral. We can say, hey, no, we'll sit with you. And they think I've already done this. Like I've already tried this, and so it's trying to create those relationships. And I think the beauty of how small we are in Sylva is we have the capability and Boone does not. They're, they are just big enough that they can't do the follow-up that we can do. But Galadriel can truly, after a week, hey, did you reach out? Tell me what happened there. She can truly help triage on the back end. It's not just here's a card. It's, hey, if this didn't work for you, let's try something else right after 2 weeks. Because we know the numbers say that the average number of times that people have to go to rehab for it to stick is 6. Right? Because it's not that all those pieces have to align, their motivation, the quality of the program, their ability to be able to manage the other life situations they have going on. So we know that sometimes it's not that it's not working, but it's just not working for them right now. So the fact that we can actually keep working and we just got like our second like double or triple referral, right? So
Yeah, so actually, yeah, I did, and I have gotten a referral recently and, 6 to 8 months ago, they declined services, but now they're at a place and some trust has been built so that they're willing to try something. They're willing to accept some assistance. And I will say of the 22 referrals that I've gotten over the past few months, 10 of those involve being unhoused in some way, shape, or form. So.
And even from some on the board of Center for Domestic Peace, we have individuals who can afford rent and they're like, we have 2 dogs and 2 kids and we need housing and we literally can't even rent somewhere. So I think that the housing crunch is just, it's clobbering us from all sides right now.
Any questions?
I'm really glad to hear that you're going to a conference where lots of people around the country are talking about the same research that you're doing. Where do you see the program in 10 years? 5 to 10 years? Do you see people being staffed? Do you see police departments across America being?
Yes, I think, and again, because, just being the second annual conference, I think that everyone hit the same critical point at the same time. They said, whatever we've been doing isn't working. The issues that we're dealing with are consistent, right? Especially in a lot of rural areas there, I think we're going to have similar conversations with lots of people. And so I think when you talk about what is needed in the department, I think that the future of this is having a full-time person. We're just trying to find a way to fund it because truly, and I know the chief, if I could find funding tomorrow, he would try to hire Galadriel tomorrow, right? She's graduating in December and he'd be like January 1, come on back full-time. So because we need it. And if we need it here in a town this size, then that is the future. And I think also people, like I said, I can't state enough what a risk he took in letting us do this because this could crash and burn. It really could have. This could have, you know what I mean? If we didn't have the right student in place, if we didn't have the right set of interactions, people would have been like, this is a smoke show right now. You all are, you're just trying to do something that looks good. So I'm really grateful that he had enough trust in the research that we did. And it was again, a year of gathering data before we even tried. Because I think once people see what's working, and that's why the UNC Innovation Lab called, they're like, hey, this looks to be working. We would love to publicize this. So I think once you get enough departments that are showing positive feedback, and honestly, enough officers who are willing to say, hey, look, this is not what you think it is. This is working for us well. I think that is what you need for buy-in. So yeah, I fully see this as the future. And in 10 years, if I'll still be at WCU, but if Professor Allen still is, we are already working towards a certificate program for CJ bachelor's MSW to have a certificate in play social work so that they can be up to speed, because right now you have to get up to speed. Whatever your background is, you need to learn the other discipline. So to come out of the door, being ready to hit the ground running, I think is, and just truly, we did not reach out to Boone. We did not reach out to Black Mountain. We did not reach out to WCU. We were just excited to see what's happening here with, optimistic caution, but we still wanted to have data. And we have a list, I would say 5 or 6 agencies deep right now that are ready to get the next step, because I think Again, when they stand up here in front of their town boards, they don't know what to say other than, hey, yeah, well, we're trying to do this call, it's not criminal, and we don't know what else to do, so.
We sent our intern to the first annual conference as well.
With 48 hours notice, we heard it was happening and we literally bought him a plane ticket. I was like, I'll figure out funding later. I'm like, you gotta go, so.
Yeah, so he went to that. And I think it's been well worth the time.
Yeah.
I would just like to chime in and say that I've been watching this program unfold firsthand, working downtown in Sylva and having good communication with all of these folks. I think that a lot of people out there need to be listened to and find out what their problems are and have somebody advocate for them that's trustworthy and has a reputation that's going to take care of them. It's not abrasive, it's not hostile, it's just what their needs are. And I've seen Galadriel be able to do that for folks. And some things are pending, but I'm hopeful that they're going to pan out here shortly, and I'm advocating for the program.
Mary has been firsthand. A lot of times she's been around because of her location right there. That's a kind of a hot spot for our homeless folks to be. And so Mary's seen this play out several times also.
I was driving at Main Street and I called the chief. I'm like, is Glacier sitting on the side of the road right now? He's like, yeah, she's on a call. I was like, I thought I saw her right there. I mean, so she's out there. Probably more than she should be right now, but that's okay. All right, well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Moving on street project ordinance update.
This is an amended project ordinance. We've included the 63,000 which has been spent on geological exploration. This shows a more accurate picture of what's going into this project.
Okay, so we adopt this amended project ordinance, so I'll entertain a motion to adopt the amended Allen Street landslide capital. I'll make that motion. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And aye. Right. That one's on. Next, Jackson County Emergency Operations Plan Hazard Mitigation Plan.
So every 5 years, the county adopts this plan, and it's done in conjunction with the Smoky Mountain Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. These are required for FEMA funds and just of counties and their municipalities to adopt. So you've got a letter for one and then a resolution for the other, but you can do both of them at once.
Okay, yeah. That's the letter. Okay, so I need a motion to adopt the letter and the resolution to adopt the Smoky Mountain Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. I'll make a motion for both. Can I do that, or I have to do, I make one motion to adopt both?
Let's say you can do both, but Smoky Mountain Regional Hazard Mitigation and Jackson County Emergency Operation Plan.
Okay, I'll make that motion. It needs to be stated.
Here.
Okay. Okay. We have a motion to adopt the Smoky Mountain Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan and the Jackson County Hazard Mitigation Plan, Emergency Operation Plan. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great. Aye. And next up, we have canceling the November 24th, 2022 Board of Commissioner meeting.
This falls on Thanksgiving.
Makes sense to cancel it.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Should cancel the meeting. Any discussion? And all those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
And likewise, the planning board was scheduled to meet that evening, so we would entertain a motion to cancel the November 24th, 2022 planning board meeting as well.
I'll make the motion to cancel the November 24th planning board meeting.
Discussion on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Lastly, we had the Christmas break discussion on board participation. I think we covered everything you want to discuss with that. Okay. So we scratched the closed session as well. So motion to adjourn. I'll make that motion. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
You can use it. Well done. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. I want all of that.